first time I saw my own funeral, I was standing behind an oak tree with rain running down my face.
30. 7 people gathered around a polished black coffin. My husband, Daniel, stood closest to it. His shoulders shook while our pastor spoke about my kindness, my loyalty, and the terrible accident that had taken me too soon. Everyone believed Daniel was crying. I knew he was trying not to smile. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 41 years old. And according to everyone in the cemetery that morning, I had died when my car went through a guardrail and burned at the bottom of a ravine. The coffin was closed because the body had supposedly been damaged beyond recognition. There was only one problem. I was not inside it. I watched Daniel place a red rose on the lid. Then my best friend, Vanessa, stepped forward and touched his arm. Her fingers remained there a little too long. That small touch answered the question that had been torturing me for 6 days. They had done this together. 6 days earlier, I had woken in a private clinic outside Wheeling, West Virginia. My ribs hurt every time I breathed. There was dried blood in my hair, and I could not remember how I had arrived there. An older doctor named Samuel Hayes sat beside my bed. "You are lucky to be alive," he told me. My memory returned in broken pieces. I remembered driving home from a business dinner in Pittsburgh. Rain hammered the windshield. My eyes became strangely heavy. Then I saw headlights behind me. A dark SUV struck the back of my car once, then again. My sedan spun across the road and crashed into a ditch. I remembered a man opening my door. I remembered his voice saying, "She's still breathing." Then another voice answered, "Not for long." After that, there was only darkness. Dr. Hayes told me a truck driver had found me near an abandoned service road, almost 2 miles from my burned car. Someone had moved my unconscious body and left me where I would freeze before morning. The driver had taken me to Hayes's small clinic because it was closer than the hospital. When the doctor saw the news report identifying me as the victim of the crash, he became suspicious. "Your husband identified the remains through jewelry and dental records," he said. "That's impossible." I agree. I asked him to call the police, but then he showed me something that changed my mind. A local news video showed Detective Aaron Pike standing beside Daniel at a press conference. Pike was the officer who had confirmed my death. He was also Daniel's oldest friend. If I walked into the police station with no evidence, Daniel would say the head injury had confused me. Pike could hide anything connected to the crash, and whoever had tried to kill me might finish the job. So I stayed dead. Dr. Hayes let me use a back room while I recovered. The truck driver, Luis Ortega, promised not to tell anyone. I cut my hair, borrowed a coat, and watched the news reports about my own life. Daniel gave interviews from our front porch. He said I had been his whole world. Vanessa stood behind him, holding a tissue. For 19 years, I had trusted that man. We met when I was 22 and working 2 jobs. Daniel had charm, ambition, and no money. I helped him finish his business degree. Later, when my father died and left me Bennett Home Supply, Daniel became the company's financial director. I believed we had built our life together. In truth, I had built the stage on which he planned to bury me. 2 months before the crash, Daniel had convinced me to increase my life insurance because the company was expanding. The policy would pay $8 million if I died in an accident. At the funeral, I watched him perform grief for every person I loved. Then I saw something even worse. My younger brother, Michael, walked toward Daniel. We had not spoken in 3 years because Daniel claimed Michael had stolen money from the company. I had believed my husband and refused to hear Michael's explanation. Michael looked broken. He placed his hand on the coffin and whispered something I could not hear. The shame nearly forced me out from behind the tree. I had abandoned my own brother for the man who had tried to murder me. When the service ended, people returned to their cars. Daniel and Vanessa waited until they were nearly alone. Detective Pike stood a few yards away, holding an umbrella. Daniel leaned close to Vanessa. She kissed his cheek. Pike saw it and looked away. That was when I understood the size of the trap. This was not only an affair. Daniel had help inside the police department. He had replaced my body, falsified my identification, and arranged a funeral in less than a week. But criminals who move quickly make mistakes. I needed to find one. That afternoon, Dr. Hayes drove me to a motel under the name Emily Carter. I bought a prepaid phone and called the only person I believed might still help me. Michael answered on the fourth ring. "Hello," I tried to speak, but my voice disappeared. "Who is this?" he asked. "Michael," I finally whispered. "It's Claire." There was a long silence. Then he said, "That isn't funny. When you were 9, you broke Mom's blue lamp. I told her the cat did it. You promised you would owe me forever." His breath caught. "Claire." "I'm alive." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then my brother began to cry. We met after midnight at an empty diner across the state line in Ohio. Michael stared at me as if I were a ghost. When he finally hugged me, the pain in my ribs did not matter. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, his expression changed from shock to anger. "Daniel framed me," he said. "I tried to tell you. I know. I am so sorry. The missing company money was not stolen. Daniel moved it through fake suppliers. I found the payments. And 2 days later, he showed you records that made me look guilty. Do you still have proof?" "Not enough. But I kept copies of some account numbers." He reached into his jacket and placed a small flash drive on the table. "I have spent 3 years trying to learn where the money went," he said. "Last month, one of the accounts received $900,000. From whom?" "Your company." I felt cold despite the warm diner. Michael turned his laptop toward me. The receiving company was called Ashford Logistics. Its listed address belonged to an empty warehouse. The account's authorized representative was Vanessa Reed. My husband had stolen from my company, slept with my best friend, framed my brother, and arranged my death. But the account revealed something they did not know. Michael had been watching them. And now the dead woman was watching too. The next morning, Michael wanted to take me to the FBI. I wanted the same thing, but we had a serious problem. A story was not evidence. Daniel controlled the company records. Pike controlled the crash investigation. Vanessa controlled Ashford Logistics. If they learned I was alive before we understood their plan, they could destroy the documents and disappear. We agreed to wait 48 hours. Michael rented a small cabin near Lake Erie with cash. It became our hiding place and our investigation room. We covered the dining table with bank statements, company reports, photographs, and names. The deeper we looked, the less my marriage resembled the life I remembered. Ashford Logistics had billed Bennett home. Supply for deliveries that never happened. Over 4 years, Daniel approved more than $3 million in payments. Vanessa moved the money into accounts in the Cayman Islands and Nevada. The theft began 6 months before Daniel accused Michael. That meant Daniel had removed the one person who might have protected me. I opened an encrypted backup of my work email. I had forgotten that my father required automatic off-site copies after a fire destroyed records years earlier. Daniel knew about the main server, but he had never cared about my father's old system. We searched for Ashford, Vanessa, and unusual insurance messages. At 2 in the morning, I found an email Daniel had deleted from my sent folder. It appeared to be from me to our insurance agent. It approved the $8 million policy and named Daniel as the sole beneficiary. I had never written it. The language was formal and cold. Daniel had used my account after I went to sleep. Michael leaned over my shoulder. Can we prove it? Maybe. The email records the device that sent it. The device was Daniel's office computer. It was our first clean piece of evidence. Then we found a message from Vanessa to Daniel hidden inside an expense report. It contained only 6 words, or Friday. Same dose. This time works. Friday was the night of my crash. Same dose. The phrase frightened me more than the crash itself. I remembered other nights during the previous year when I became suddenly tired after dinner. Once, I woke on the bathroom floor. Daniel said, I had fainted from stress. Another time, I fell asleep while driving but woke when my tires struck the shoulder. They had tried before. Each failed attempt had taught them how to improve the next one. Michael closed the laptop. We'll go now. Not to the local police. Then the state police. Pike may have friends there. We need someone Daniel cannot reach. Ducker. Hayes gave us the name of an investigative journalist named Rachel Kim. Years earlier, she had exposed a healthcare fraud case involving powerful local officials. She now worked for a national news network in Washington. I called her from the prepaid phone. At first, Rachel assumed it was a prank. Then I sent a photograph of myself, holding that morning's newspaper, and a copy of my driver's license. She called back in less than 3 minutes. We met in a busy hotel lobby in Cleveland. Rachel arrived with a camera operator named Ben and a former federal prosecutor named Evelyn Shaw. Evelyn studied every document before she spoke. You have evidence of fraud, she said. You may have evidence of conspiracy to commit murder. But we still need to connect Daniel, Vanessa, and Detective Pike directly to the crash and the false body. How? Let them believe they won. The insurance company had not yet paid Daniel. Because the claim involved a large amount, there would be a formal meeting the following week. Daniel would need to certify that I was dead and explain the accident. Evelyn believed he might contact his partners before the meeting. Rachel arranged a safe apartment for me. Ben taught Michael how to use small recording devices legally. Evelyn contacted a federal agent she trusted, but did not reveal my identity yet. She wanted enough evidence to prevent Pike from warning Daniel. Meanwhile, I did something that felt more dangerous than walking into a police station. I returned to my own house. Daniel and Vanessa had gone to dinner. Michael parked 2 streets away while I entered through the old cellar window. I had used it once when I locked myself out years earlier. My home smelled different. Vanessa's perfume hung in the hallway. On the kitchen counter stood 2 wine glasses. My funeral flowers had not even died, and she was already living inside my marriage. I moved quietly upstairs. Daniel's home office was locked, but I knew he kept a spare key beneath the bottom drawer of an antique desk. Inside, I photographed files and copied his computer drive. Then I noticed a new steel cabinet in the corner. Michael had given me a small lock tool. My hands shook, but after several attempts, the cabinet opened. Inside were insurance papers, burner phones, and a clear plastic bag containing my mother's gold bracelet. The jewelry Daniel claimed had been found on the burned body. Beneath it lay a photograph of a woman I did not recognize. She had dark hair, brown eyes, and a narrow scar above her left eyebrow. Written on the back was a name, Laura Miles. I photographed it and put everything back. Then I heard the garage door open. Daniel and Vanessa were home early. I closed the cabinet and slipped into the hallway. Their voices rose from below. Pike wants more money, Vanessa said. He'll get it after the insurance pays. And what about the clinic? My heart stopped. Daniel lowered his voice, but I heard his reply. Hayes knows nothing. If he did, Claire would have appeared by now. They knew about the clinic. I reached the bedroom as footsteps climbed the stairs. There was no time to return to the cellar. I hid inside my own closet behind Daniel's winter coats. Vanessa entered the room, through a narrow gap. I watched her remove her earrings and place them on my dresser. Daniel came behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "One more week," he said. "Then the money is ours." "You said that before." "The company, the house, the insurance. Everything Claire had will belong to us." Vanessa turned to face him. "Not everything," she said. Then she pulled a small pistol from her handbag. Daniel's smile vanished. "After the payment," she continued, "you will sign Ashford over to me. If you try to cheat me, I will tell the police whose idea the ravine was." Daniel stared at her for a moment. Then he laughed. "That gun won't protect you from what you don't know." They left the room together, but their words remained. Their partnership was already cracking, and somewhere beneath their secrets was a dead woman named Laura Miles. Part 3. T Mama Tio Usitidi. Rachel found Laura's identity within hours. Laura Miles was 39 and had lived in a shelter in Pittsburgh. She had struggled with addiction but had recently completed treatment. 3 weeks before my crash, she disappeared. She had no close family, no permanent address, and no one powerful looking for her. Daniel had chosen her because he believed her life would not matter. That knowledge changed my revenge. Until then, part of me wanted only to expose Daniel and take back what he had stolen. But Laura had been murdered so that I could have a body in my coffin. I could not bring her back. I could make sure the world learned her name. Rachel interviewed people at the shelter. One woman remembered seeing Laura leave with a man who promised her a cleaning job. Security footage showed that man was Detective Pike. Now we had a direct link. Evelyn contacted Special Agent Marcus Cole of the FBI. He met us in a secure office and listened while I described the crash, the funeral, and my search. Cole did not waste time expressing surprise. "If Pike is involved, we assume every local record is compromised," he said. "From now on, you do nothing alone." I thought about my visit to the house and decided not to argue. The FBI quietly obtained records for the burner phones I had photographed. One number contacted Daniel repeatedly before the crash. Another belonged to Pike. A third was registered to a private ambulance company owned by Pike's cousin. Traffic cameras showed that ambulance near the ravine before firefighters arrived. The outline became clear. Vanessa had drugged my drink at the business dinner. Daniel followed me in the SUV. After forcing my car off the road, he and Pike removed me. They placed Laura's body in the driver's seat, added my bracelet, and set the car on fire. They believed I had died while they transported me. When Pike's cousin noticed I was still breathing, they abandoned me by the service road and returned to the crash. Their plan was cruel, but not perfect. The insurance meeting was scheduled for Monday at Bennett home, Supply's main office. Daniel invited board members and company attorneys. He wanted everyone to see him take control. Agent Cole wanted us to remain hidden while the FBI made arrests. I wanted Daniel to confess first. "He will deny everything," Cole said. "Not if he believes Vanessa betrayed him." The idea had come from their argument in my bedroom. Daniel and Vanessa trusted greed more than they trusted each other. We only needed to push. Rachel created a false email that appeared to come from Vanessa. It offered Detective Pike an extra $1 million to testify that Daniel planned the murder alone. Cole arranged for Pike to receive a printed copy through an informant. Then Michael sent Daniel an anonymous message. "Vanessa made a deal. Ask Pike." The results came quickly. Daniel called Pike 14 times that evening. Pike ignored the first 13. On the 14th, the FBI recorded their conversation under a warrant. "Did you talk to her?" Daniel demanded. "You need to calm down." "Did Vanessa offer you money?" "We should not discuss this by phone." "I paid you to handle Claire and the other woman. If this falls apart, you fall with me." There it was. Not a full confession, but enough to place Daniel inside both murders. Pike agreed to meet Daniel at an abandoned warehouse used by Ashford Logistics. The FBI installed cameras before they arrived. From a surveillance van, I watched the two men accuse each other. Pike said Daniel had promised him $2 million. Daniel said Pike had failed to kill me properly. "She was breathing when you dumped her." Daniel shouted, "She was dying. Did you check?" "I checked the news. She has been dead for a week." Daniel began pacing. "Vanessa is getting nervous," he said. "After the insurance payment. We need to clean this up." Meaning there should only be one person left who knows the entire story. Pike stared at him. "Which one?" Daniel smiled. "Me." The FBI could have arrested them then, but Cole wanted Vanessa's confession and the location of Laura's belongings. We waited. That almost cost us everything. The next afternoon, Dr. Hayes called me. "A detective came to the clinic," he said. He asked about unidentified patients. Pike. "No. A woman. She showed a badge too quickly for me to read. A Vanessa. She had worked as a medical sales representative and knew how to enter private clinics without creating suspicion." "Did you tell her anything?" "No, but she looked at the security camera. The clinic's outside camera had recorded Louise carrying me inside. If Vanessa obtained that footage, she would know I had survived." Cole sent agents to protect Hayes and Louise. By the time they arrived, Vanessa was gone. That night, Daniel canceled the insurance meeting. My old company Access showed he had transferred $200,000 to an account in Mexico. A private jet reservation had been made under another name. They were running. Michael and I were moved to a different safe house. Agent Cole believed someone had leaked information from inside the investigation. At 3 a.m, the fire alarm sounded. Smoke entered beneath the door. Michael opened the window while I called Cole. The hallway was already burning, and the back staircase was blocked. We climbed onto a narrow roof above the porch. An SUV waited across the street with its headlights off. As firefighters arrived, the SUV drove away. Michael pointed his phone toward it and captured the license plate. The vehicle belonged to Rachel's camera operator, Ben. The leak had been beside us from the beginning. When Cole found Ben, he confessed. Daniel had paid him $50,000 for information. Ben claimed he had not started the fire. He had only revealed the safe, house address to Vanessa. Cole showed me a photo recovered from Ben's phone. Vanessa stood beside the SUV outside the burning house. She now knew I was alive. An hour later, a message appeared on my prepaid phone. It contained a photograph of Michael leaving the fire with paramedics. Under it were 8 words: "Come alone, or your brother dies for real." Part 4. Teat Trap ATHVRD. The message told me to meet Vanessa at the Ashford warehouse before sunrise. Agent Cole ordered me not to go. "It is an obvious trap," he said. "Yes," I answered. Which means she expects me. Michael was safe inside the federal building, but Vanessa did not know that. She believed fear would make me careless. We decided to let her believe it. The FBI fitted me with a microphone and placed agents around the warehouse. Cole warned me that Vanessa might have Daniel or Pike nearby. My task was simple: keep her talking, and do not try to be brave. For the first time since my funeral, I felt no fear. Fear had ruled my marriage, in ways I had never noticed. I feared disappointing Daniel. I feared admitting I had been wrong about Michael. I feared losing the comfortable life I had spent years protecting. Then Daniel took everything, and I discovered something unexpected. A woman with nothing left to protect can finally see what matters. I entered the warehouse at 5:12 in the morning. Vanessa stood under a hanging light. She wore a black coat and held the same pistol I had seen in my bedroom. "You look good for a dead woman," she said. "You look nervous for someone who won." Her mouth tightened. "Where is the evidence?" "Safe. With Michael." "Maybe." She raised the gun. "Do not play with me." I looked at the empty warehouse. Where is Daniel? Running. That is what he does when things become difficult. "You helped him." I helped myself. I asked her about Laura Miles. For the first time, Vanessa's confidence weakened. "Pike found her," she said. "Daniel said she was already dying. She had finished treatment. She was trying to rebuild her life." "Daniel handled that part. But you put my bracelet on her body." Vanessa stared at me. It was not a guess. In one of the warehouse recordings, Pike had mentioned that Vanessa dressed the body. "You were supposed to die quickly," she said. "None of this was supposed to happen." "How many times did you drug me?" "Twice before the crash." Daniel lost his courage both times. "And you stayed my friend." "I was never your friend." The words hurt, but only for a second. "Then they set me free." Vanessa began to talk, as people often do when they think they hold all the power. She told me she had met Daniel 6 years earlier. He promised her money, a house, and control of my company. She created Ashford Logistics and helped him steal from me. When Michael discovered the payments, she helped Daniel alter the records. "Why kill me?" I asked. "You were already taking the money." "Because you planned to sell the company." That was true. I had received an offer from a national chain. I intended to give longtime employees shares and use the remaining money to open a charitable foundation. If I sold, auditors would examine every account. Daniel and Vanessa would lose everything and go to prison. So he increased the insurance, I said. $8 million gave us a new beginning. There is no us now, is there? Her eyes hardened. I continued. Daniel told Pike he planned to kill everyone who knew the truth. You are lying. He said only one person should remain. Vanessa's gun lowered slightly. I took out my phone and played the warehouse recording. Daniel's voice filled the building. There should only be one person left who knows the entire story. Which one? Me. Vanessa listened in silence. Then another voice came from the darkness behind me. You always were easy to manipulate. Daniel stepped from behind a stack of crates. He held a gun. Vanessa turned toward him, but he fired first. The bullet struck her shoulder. She fell and her pistol slid across the concrete. Federal agents shouted from outside. Daniel grabbed me around the neck and pressed his gun beneath my chin. Back away, he yelled. Cole and 2 agents entered with weapons raised. Daniel dragged me toward a side exit. You should have stayed dead, he whispered. You should have learned to check. He tightened his arm. Do you think this changes anything? The company is empty. The money is gone. No, Daniel. Your money is gone. Before entering the warehouse, I had authorized Evelyn to freeze every account connected to Ashford. The Cayman Bank had cooperated after learning the funds were tied to a murder. The company transfer to Mexico had also been stopped. Daniel had no plane, no insurance, and no fortune. He had murdered for money he would never touch. His hand began to shake. Vanessa, bleeding on the floor, reached slowly toward her pistol. Daniel saw her movement and turned. That was the opening I needed. I drove my heel down onto his foot and dropped my weight. The gun fired into the ceiling. Cole crossed the distance and knocked Daniel against a crate. Within seconds, my husband was on the floor with his hands cuffed behind his back. Vanessa was taken away in an ambulance under armed guard. Pike was arrested at the airport. In his suitcase, agents found cash, false identification, and Laura Miles's missing phone. The phone contained a voice message she recorded on the night she disappeared. She described Pike and the promised job. By noon, the story was on every major news network. But my revenge was not finished. Daniel still believed he could lie. He claimed Vanessa planned everything. Vanessa said Daniel had forced her. Pike blamed both of them. Each wanted a deal. I wanted the truth spoken where no one could hide it. So I decided to attend Daniel's trial. Not as the victim who had barely survived, as the witness who had returned from her own grave. Part 5. MYC Funeral. The trial began 11 months later in federal court. People lined up outside before sunrise. News vans filled the street. Reporters called it the dead woman case, but I refused to let them forget Laura. Every interview I gave began with her name. Laura Miles was not a replacement body. She was a person. She loved old country music, drank coffee with too much sugar, and planned to train as a nursing assistant. Her life had value before it became evidence in mine. Vanessa accepted a plea agreement and testified against Daniel and Pike. She described the drugs, the false company, the crash, and the decision to use Laura's body. Pike also made a deal after learning Vanessa had recorded several of their conversations. He led investigators to the place where they had kept Laura before the crash. Daniel stood alone. He wore an expensive blue suit and looked directly at the jury each morning. His attorneys said he was a grieving husband manipulated by a dangerous mistress and a corrupt detective. Then I entered the courtroom. For the first time since the warehouse, Daniel looked afraid. I sat in the witness chair and told the truth from the beginning. I described our marriage, the insurance policy, the drugged drink, the SUV striking my car, and the voices I heard when they discovered I was alive. The prosecutor played Daniel's recorded statement. She was breathing when you dumped her. No attorney could explain those words away. During cross-examination, Daniel's lawyer asked why I had not immediately contacted the police. Because the detective responsible for confirming my death was one of the men who tried to kill me, I said. He asked why I entered my house illegally. It was still my house. A few people in the courtroom laughed. Even the judge hid a smile. Then the lawyer made his mistake. Mrs. Bennett, is it possible that your anger toward your husband has affected your memory? I looked at Daniel. My anger did not create the email he sent from his computer. It did not create the stolen money, the burner phones, the traffic videos, the recordings, or Laura's body. My memory is only one small part of the evidence your client left behind. The lawyer sat down. The jury deliberated for less than 5 hours. Daniel was found guilty of murder, attempted murder, conspiracy, wire fraud, insurance fraud, and money laundering. He received life in prison without the possibility of parole. Pike received 42 years. Vanessa received 28. Some people said Vanessa deserved life too. I understood their anger, but her testimony had revealed where Laura spent her final hours. It gave Laura's distant aunt the chance to bury her under her own name. Justice is not always equal. It is rarely clean. But it is better than silence. After the trial, I returned to Bennett Home Supply. Daniel had drained millions, and the scandal had damaged our reputation. Several advisors told me to sell what remained. I did not. Michael became financial director, the position he should have held years earlier. I apologized to him in private, in public, and every day through my actions. He never pretended the past had not hurt. He simply chose to help me build something better. Together, we recovered most of the stolen money. We gave employees ownership shares and created the Laura Miles Foundation, which provides housing, treatment, and job training for women rebuilding their lives. Docker. Hayes became a board member. Luis Ortega, the truck driver who saved me, refused any reward, so I bought his daughter a college scholarship instead. Rachel won an award for her reporting. She used her speech to say Laura's name before mine. For the first time in years, I began to understand the difference between people who loved me and people who loved what I could give them. One spring morning, Michael and I went to the cemetery. The black coffin from my funeral had been removed after investigators confirmed it contained only bags of sand and damaged animal bones. Daniel had not even risked placing Laura inside it. Her remains had stayed with the medical examiner under my name until the truth was uncovered, but the stone Daniel ordered for me still stood there. Bennett, the dates showed that I had lived 41 years. Michael asked if I wanted it destroyed. Not yet, I said. We had a stoneworker turn it around. On the blank side, I asked him to carve new words. Ts momam dalbos o tirosted everyanan xcp tar self. Tat andij tia hefti fari. The old inscription faced the earth. The new one faced the sunrise. Months passed. I sold the large house where Daniel and Vanessa had planned their future. I moved into a smaller place near the lake. At first, the quiet frightened me. I had spent so long listening for danger that peace felt unnatural. Then I learned to enjoy it. I planted tomatoes. I took long walks. I called Michael when I needed help instead of pretending I could handle everything alone. Sometimes strangers recognized me. They called me brave. I did not feel brave. I felt awake. Bravery was not surviving the crash. I had no choice in that. Bravery was admitting how completely I had been deceived. It was facing my brother after rejecting him. It was speaking Laura's name when the world preferred a dramatic nickname for me. On the second anniversary of the crash, the foundation opened its first residence in Pittsburgh. Laura's aunt cut the ribbon. Behind her hung a photograph of Laura smiling in the sunshine. Beneath it was a simple sign, I virwai left decides via species. After the ceremony, I drove alone to the cemetery. I carried one red rose, the same kind Daniel had placed on my coffin. The evening was warm and clear. I stood before my backward gravestone and thought about the woman I had been. She worked hard, loved deeply, and confused loyalty with blindness. I did not hate her anymore. She had done the best she could with the truth she had. I placed the rose beneath the new inscription. Goodbye, I whispered. Not to my life, to my fear. Daniel had wanted my company, my money, my name, and my future. For one rainy week, he had taken all of them. He had stood beside an empty coffin and believed he had erased me. But the strange thing about being declared dead is that you stop living for other people's approval. I walked away from the grave as the sun rose behind me. My husband had arranged my funeral. I made sure it was the only victory he ever attended. E&D.